It's not a new idea to say that Rodgers and Hammerstein revolutionized American musical theater. However, proof is in the pudding. Out of the 9 works for theater and 2 movie musicals, 5 stage shows and 1 movie were outstanding successes, redefining the meaning of a blockbuster on Broadway. R&H brought together several ideas percolating in musical theater to create the integrated musical. A musical with a book, the songs, the dances, the set, the costumes, the lights, and everything else was designed with one story in mind. This gave musicals an emotional depth and punch they lacked in previous incarnations. The musicals also did not shy away from commenting somewhat seriously on the culture and social morals of the day. Hammerstein especially wanted to portray a world that was better than the one he found day to day, and gave his musicals a definitive progressive slant. It was so progressive for the time that censors and local politicians were up in arms about the touring productions in some places in the country. My name is Dr. Dominique Royam, and I'm a music director, conductor, and music communicator, here to help you achieve a deeper connection to the music you love. Follow me on social media at Dominique Royam for more content. Let's talk about the progressive politics of Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals. Oklahoma did not start out auspiciously. It was hard to get any backers for the show, and the producing team went with unheard of actors because no names wanted to sign on to the project. Even in the out-of-town tryouts, there were no hints of the success it would be. Opening night was like a bomb going off on Broadway. People saw something they had never seen before. A down-home story with stellar songs and wonderful dancing, all lovingly created to point to one thing: the characters, the theme, and the story that had import. The story and the theme are what was so transgressive about this Gesamtkunstwerk. It details how Laurie Williams was courted by 2 men, the cowboy Curly McLean and the sinister and frightening farmhand Judd Fry. A secondary romance concerns cowboy Will Parker and his flirtatious fiancée, Ado Annie. At the base of the story is the idea that Hammerstein placed at the center of most of his musicals: the need for eradicating racial, ethnic, and cultural prejudices, promoting tolerance and acceptance of differences, and bringing about reconciliation if possible, as author John Bush Jones put it in his book, Our Musical Selves. The original play, Green Grow the Lilacs, is peopled with cattlemen and farmers in Indian territory about to become Oklahoma, but never digs into the political implications. Hammerstein, through his research, understood the fundamental difference between the 2 groups and set up the musical as an overarching act of tolerance for each group. The explicit statement of this comes in the number The Farmer and the Cattleman, where the group indulge in some good-natured ribbing until a fistfight breaks out.
Listen.
I'd like to say a word for the farmer.
Say it.
He come out west and made a lot of changes.
He come out west and built a lot of fences.
That's right, Will.
And built them right across our cattle ranges.
That's right. Why don't those dirt scratchers stay in Missouri where they belong?
Hell, we got as much right here as anybody else.
Let me hear it, so.
I reckon so.
Come on, get
The fight then breaks out, and the women sing, trying to keep the peace.
Sing it, Andrew. Dum-diddy-um, dum-dum.
The farmer and the cowman should be friends.
Yeah.
All the farmer and the cowman should be friends.
One man likes to push a plow, the other likes to chase a cow, but that's no reason why they can't be friends.
The women sing a lyric that directly points their finger to the issue. One man likes to push a plow, one man likes to chase a cow, and is a plea for mutual understanding, but that's no reason why they can't be friends. When the fight is calmed, one man sings,
And when this territory is a state and joins the union just like all the others, the farmer and the cowman and the merchant must all behave themselves and act like brothers.
directly stating Hammerstein's sentiments. The end of the musical also acts as a proclamation of Hammerstein's sentiments. Laurie and Curly get married. The farmer's daughter and the cowhand act out the pinnacle of mutual understanding and tolerance, the creation of a new family. The secondary plot sees Ado Annie, a farmer's daughter, marry Will Parker, another cowman. They sing to the creation of a new society and a new state with the eponymous song. The tolerance and respect theme comes back in full force in the second musical for R&H, Carousel. It was based on Frederick Molinar's Lilom, with Hammerstein's prejudice/tolerance theme added. In the main plot, Carnival Barker and ruffian Billy Bigelow marries Julie, a devoted young girl that tolerates Billy's physical abuse stoically. After Billy learns he's about to become a father, he participates in a robbery, kills himself when it goes wrong, and comes back to Earth after his death to do one good deed. The secondary plot is where the prejudice/tolerance theme was inserted. Julie's friend Carrie married Enoch Snow, first a lowly fisherman, then head of a canning empire. The tolerance theme only arrives in the end of Act 2, and only in dance and dialogue, never in music. The show transported us 15 years into the future, where Enoch Snow has his canning empire, 6 children, and a prominent place in the community. At the start of the second act ballet, Agnes DeMille, the choreographer, has Louise, Julie, and Billy's child, now 15, romping on the beach with other young ruffians from town. Enoch and the Snow children, walking on the same beach, snub Louise as they walk by. The ruffians hurl insults at her, and at the end of the ballet, some children dressed for a party snub her. Thus, Louise has been snubbed because of class differences, not just the Snow prejudice. The ensuing dialogue scene, Enoch Snow tried to prevent his eldest, Enoch Jr., from speaking to Louise. When he sneaks off to do so, he tells her of his crush, wanting to marry Louise only if he can persuade Papa to let him marry below his station. Louise has a well-deserved fit at this statement. By the end of Act 2 of Carousel, Hammerstein has only proposed the prejudice exists, but has yet to make the statement against it. That statement happens in one line in the last speech of the act, Louise's high school graduation. The orator at the event, the town doctor, says,
"The world belongs to you as much as to the next fella, so don't give it up. And try not to be scared of people not liking you. Just you try liking them. And just keep your faith and your courage, and you'll turn out all right."
The doctor's sentiment is steamrolled over by an uplifting reprise of You'll Never Walk Alone. As Stephen Citron observes, Hammerstein, the librettist, seems to be telling us to embrace others, while Hammerstein, the lyricist, tells us in the song that we must keep the faith. The Pulitzer Prize-winning South Pacific had Hammerstein's prejudice-tolerance theme as the linchpin of the two plots for the first time. It is also one of the strongest indictments against racism that Hammerstein ever wrote. In Oklahoma and Carousel, an actual figure is the blocking mechanism, preventing a happily ever after for the couple. In South Pacific, it isn't a person, but the ingrained prejudices and racial bias of the characters. Hammerstein shifted his theme of tolerance from incidental to central to the story. This creates a powerful indictment of racism in the work, even to the point of the touring show being campaigned against in some southern states. The two relationships at play in South Pacific are Nellie and Emile and Cable and Liat. Nellie and Emile's story is much more straightforward. Nellie, a nurse from Little Rock, Arkansas, falls in love with Emile Debec, a middle-aged French plantation owner. She calls off the wedding because she finds out that Emile had slept with Polynesian women, which she equates to blacks. She can't escape being an American Southerner with a specific racial bias against blacks, which she equates to Polynesians. After Emile comes back from a dangerous reconnaissance mission, love prevails, and Nellie decides tolerance of differences is the right way to happiness. The Cable-Liat romance fares differently. Cable's character at the top of Act 2 tells Mary, Liat's mother, "Mary, I can't marry Liat." The stage directions say forcing the words out, meaning he would rather say something else, but his knowledge of his family's prejudices makes him think that he could not bring Liat home to his family. In the midst of their breakup, Nellie tells Emile, "I can't help it. There is no reason. This is emotional. This is something that is born in me," referring, of course, to her prejudice against blacks and anyone she equates with blacks. After Nellie leaves, Emile says to Cable, "I do not believe it is born in you. I do not believe it." Another character in the scene, Joe, says, "It's not born in you. It happens after you're born." Then Cable launches into the most controversial song of the show, "You Must Be Carefully Taught." The song stands out as the most explicit statement of learned biases in the whole R&H canon. Richard Rodgers characterizes Carefully Taught as a song that reveals Cable's epiphany about the irrationality of learned bigotry. Rodgers said, "Oscar and I felt it was needed in a particular spot for a Princeton-educated young wasp who, despite his background and upbringing, has fallen in love with a Polynesian girl. It was perfectly keeping with the character and the situation that, having once lost his heart, he would be able to express his feelings about the superficiality of racial barriers." Soon after resolving his racial barriers and determined to come back to marry Liat after the war, Cable is killed on the reconnaissance mission with Emile. Stephen Citron suggests the reason for Cable's death may be to satisfy censors who might object to the liaison fostering miscegenation. The punch of the statement about racial bias was pulled for commercial success, whereas Cable's death seems to placate the "they're not going to marry my daughter" mindset. Another musical that demonstrates the progressive politics of R&H is The King and I. Hammerstein, specifically, focuses on promoting tolerance and respect among people of different cultures. While Cable and Nellie's prejudices create crises in a few specific instances in South Pacific, the cultural biases of Anna, the feisty Welsh schoolteacher, and the rigid King of Siam are central to their personalities and inform every interaction between the two characters. The King and I was the pinnacle of integration, not only of the progressive politics, but the plot, story, and music. In the musical, the King and Anna butt heads on every conceivable subject, from what Anna is teaching the King's children to her original contract, where she was promised a house, that doesn't appear until the end of Act 1. Hammerstein sets up the conflict in the musical by having Anna and the King start out at opposite ends of a cultural spectrum from each other. Hammerstein gives each character a moment of reflection early on in the work, with the King going first. The song, called A Puzzlement, comes after the King's son challenges him on the time-honored Siamese view of astronomy with Anna's explanation of the Earth's rotation.
There are times I almost think I am not sure of what I absolutely know. Very often find confusion in conclusion I concluded long ago. In my head are many facts that as a student I have studied to procure. In my head are many facts of which I wish I was more certain. I was sure.
Later in the act, Anna storms in from a shouting match with the king over her promised house, and she vents everything she wished to say to him in "Shall I tell you what I think of you?" In it, she has a small spark of recognition that British social norms might not be universally true.
I do not like polygamy, or even moderate bigamy. I realize that in your eyes that clearly makes a prig of me. But I am from a civilized land called Wales, where men like you are kept in county jails.
The concept of priggishness is grounded in Western culture, so the King of Siam would have no reference for it. However, Anna questions, if only lightly, if the Western social norm is part of her Victorian prudery. Bit by bit throughout the musical, these barriers are broken down into the acceptance of others and their traditions, a masterclass in coming to cross-cultural understanding. However, even Hammerstein is not perfect. The King and I has a Eurocentric focus, with the end of the musical being a triumph of Western morals over Eastern ones. In the last scene, the king lies dying, and his son, as the new king, makes his first proclamation, one that changes the Eastern standard of kowtowing, placing the forehead on the floor as an act of submission to a ruler, with the Western style of bowing and curtsying. Anna and her values triumph over the weak and dying king. Hammerstein is guilty of seeing the Western-style culture as more civilized and more modern. The last collaboration between Rodgers and Hammerstein did not have a Hammerstein book. The Sound of Music book was written by Howard Lindsay and Russell Krauss of Anything Goes fame. R&H were brought in to do the music and the lyrics. However, the themes of the musical closed the circle on Hammerstein's concerns for tolerance. The musical concerns the von Trapp family and their governess, the Nazi takeover of Austria, and the Third Reich imperceptibly go from the background of the musical to the foreground. Captain von Trapp, a principled anti-Nazi, he says in the play, "I am Austrian, I will not be heiled," refused a commission in the Navy of the Third Reich, set against his friend and sometimes fiancé, who have no qualms about taking positions in the new administration. The von Trapps flee for their lives over the Austrian Alps in the finale of the show, giving up everything in a principled rejection of Nazism. It is Hammerstein's deep belief in intolerance and the need for reconciliation that is reflected strongly in this anti-Nazi message of The Sound of Music. Thank you for joining me in this video about the progressive politics of Rodgers and Hammerstein. If you'd like to learn more about politics and musicals, I suggest the book Our Musicals, Selves by John Bush Jones. A link to it can be found in the description box below. Like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more. What do you want to learn about next? Leave me a comment down below. You can also support the making of these videos on Patreon. These videos take over 20 hours of research to complete, so Patreon is a great way to show your support. The bibliography for this video can be found on my website, dominiqueroyam.com. Interested in seeing my process? I document it on my social media, so follow me for more updates. My handles are listed below. Thanks again, and see you in my next video.